Greetings, and we'll come back to room 303 in our talks with Walt as we're calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We're in the Calamus section, and we turn now to a very interesting little poem, No Labor-Saving Machine. Now, my assumption is that you've been with us all the way through from the very beginning at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, talks with Walt, from the inscriptions passages all the way up through Frailest Leaves, which we just finished with. Now, our Nortons here will tell us some background information that the opening phrase of the sixth line of this Calamus number 33 poem read, quote, "Only these carols," end quote. It was changed in 67 to read "Only a few carols," and in 1881 to read "But a few carols." It took its present title in 1867. Now think about the fact that in 1794 you'll have Whitney's Cotton Gin. And then from then on, all of the major events that would transpire in terms of technology that would forever change America and the world. And yet, Whitman, I think, is always asking about the value of his work. And he will say it this way. Let's enjoy the poem. No labor-saving machine or discovery have I made, nor will I be able to leave behind me any wealthy bequests to found hospital or library, nor reminiscence of any deed of courage for America, nor literary success, nor intellect, nor book for the bookshelf, but a few carols vibrating through the air I leave for comrades and lovers. Now, this kind, you remember in our discussion of City of Orgies, this not nor kind of thing, and you'll notice again how many times the not nor is used here. I think Whitman was very engaged in the artistic question of the value of art. And I think he saw that technology and great advances in science can be applauded and understood as being central. We'll come to this when we discuss When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. But for Whitman, he saw the value of his poems and art as equally valuable. And so he'll begin by saying, I haven't produced any kind of labor-saving machine. I haven't discovered anything that's important. He will celebrate Columbus later. Obviously, today we will take contest with a whole bunch of his celebration of Columbus, but we'll appreciate that he saw in Columbus the discoverer, that is to say, someone making great strides forward. We think of Daniel Bornstein's classic, The Discoverers, right? He says, no, I won't be able to leave behind me any wealthy bequest. We think about Whitman as being a person not of means. We've said it a number of times, right? To found hospital or library. Think about it. John Davidson Rockefeller was a young man in 1855. Just a few years later, he, of course, would be one of America's most wealthy, along with the Vanderbilts and others that come to mind, right? He says, no, I also don't have any reminiscence or any deed of courage for America. Now, I told you it's important when he uses the word America, and that's anytime he does it. I hear America singing the very carols I hear. I think this is a very subtle line, because I think Whitman did believe that publishing Leaves of Grass was in fact a deed of courage. But I think what he meant here is that it's not a kind of deed of courage that will sit on par with some of the great deeds of courage, which maybe will come to mind. We obviously think of Gettysburg and the horrors of any number of battles of the American Civil War, right? He says, I don't have any of those to celebrate. He says, I don't even have success literarily. Now, it is true that the poems we celebrate today in Leaves of Grass were in their own time not celebrated in the same way. And much of what we've said in this series of talks with Walt are things that could not have been said back when Whitman himself was publishing his poems. And to that degree, no, he didn't have great literary success. By the way, the word literary has its rare use in Leaves of Grass. You can run that to ground. It's kind of fascinating. He says, nor, and this is fascinating, intellect. Now, what's he mean by that? Well, he's probably measuring himself against somebody like, Shakespeare, Milton, Dante, Galileo, and to that degree he says, yeah, I can't be in the same company as those greatest of intellectuals. Again, one wonders though if Whitman, on some count, believed his Leaves of Grass could serve some purpose that was intellectual. I'm certain that he did. Go back to our comments on eidolons from the inscriptions section, right? He says, nor book for the bookshelf. You'll remember in the inscriptions, shut not your doors to me, proud libraries, well-filled shelves. Do you remember that one? I think he's still dancing that dance. I think he recognized on the one hand that his book of poems, Leaves of Grass, was probably not going to sit on shelves of the intellectuals' libraries, but he wanted it to, and more importantly, he wanted it to be on everybody's bookshelf, which is why I've argued to you, excuse me, that you want to go out and buy your own copy of Leaves of Grass and annotate it yourself, own it, make it your own, right? He used to do this thing where he'd tear pages out of a book, stick them in his pocket, and go for walks so that he could look at it and the like, right? Well, if all of that is no, nor, 5 right times, then what is it that he's offering? He'll begin with the word but. And I think he learned this from his study of Shakespeare's sonnets. At line 9 in sonneteering, we've said before in earlier lectures that you have that shift, and here's the shift, right, the transition. He says, this is what I give, but a few, again, you know, he always loves to use this, not a lot, just a few. A few carols is what he calls them now, not poems, not songs, not leaves, he calls them carols. And then this interesting use of the word vibrate, vibrating, from Song of Myself, passage 8. You'll maybe remember that he played this game, right? Living, buried, speech vibrating, right? Vibrating through the air I leave. Now, I told you guys this. He loves to use the word leave in different ways in Leaves of Grass, right? By the way, think about Song of Myself, passage 24, and this use of the word air. The air tastes good to my palate. He will say these echoes start to play out in Calamus. Through the air I leave. And what's it for? Well, these carols, sounding very much like the varied carols I hear America singing. Do you remember in Song of Myself, passage 12, right? Shake out carols stronger, right? This idea of the carols. For what? For, he loves this word in Calamus, comrades and, of course, lovers. To that degree, there will be this celebration of what it is that he hopes that he can give to America, a term used 23 times or more in Calamus or beyond. It's fascinating. He's very focused on being the national poet, to maybe not produce anything of great importance in the scientific world or the intellectual world or maybe even the literary world, but he wants to produce something. He calls them carols, he calls them songs, which is why I made the argument it's best to read these poems aloud. At 2a, well, I think one of the messages here is that art is the most important thing in any nation, and I think he saw that very much here. At 2b, the no or nor construction we've seen, and of course the play of leaves and leave in Leaves of Grass. At 3a, I want to take us back to a text that we've studied and we hold as sacred in room 303, Emerson's American Scholar and the Power of Ideas. Of course, Whitman knew so well that speech at Harvard. And I also want to think about Herman Melville's Moby Dick here, and the tension we've talked about in other lectures between the idea of art and technology and how it's always there, right? And I think we're playing a game here in this little poem as well. Finally, how can you own a poem like this one? Well, I'm going to ask you this question. Is art more important than technology? Or is in fact technology nothing more than applied art? As you hold your phone in your hand, are you not actually looking at art as much as you are technology? I think Whitman would be interested in a question like that, so I'll throw it at you. Thank you.